When you look at the Middle East, what do you see? You see conflict, you see religion, and above all, you see oil. For the last 100 years, the black gold has dictated the destiny of this region. It has built empires, funded dictators, and triggered invasions. We have been conditioned to believe that every explosion in this part of the world is, essentially, a fight for wealth and power. But we are looking at the wrong map. While the world obsesses over pipelines and barrels per day, a much quieter, deadlier clock is ticking. The region is drying up. Some experts are already raising the alarm. The next great conflict won't be about a commodity you sell to get rich. It will be about the one resource you need to stay alive. This isn't just a climate story. This is a story about how artificial borders, bad governance, and ancient rivalries are colliding with an ecological catastrophe. Today, we are going to show you why the Middle East is about to explode again, and this time, oil won't save them.
To understand the future, we have to understand the land itself. Scholars often talk about Middle East exceptionalism, the idea that this region is uniquely prone to violence due to its ethnic makeup, geography, and resources. Historically, this resource was oil. It was a curse and a blessing. It allowed nations to punch above their weight. But it also masked a terrifying reality. The Middle East is the most water-scarce region on planet Earth. For decades, governments have hidden this reality. They used oil money to subsidize water, build massive desalination plants, and drain ancient aquifers to grow wheat in the desert. They bought social peace with cheap water. But as we've seen, the foundation of these states is fragile. The region is full of autocratic regimes notorious for corruption and poor governance. And when you combine a corrupt government with a drying tap, you don't just get a drought. You get a revolution.
We often blame the violence on the artificial borders drawn by Britain and France after World War I. We usually criticize these borders for splitting ethnic groups, like the Kurds, or forcing rival sects together. But there was another, less discussed crime in that cartography. The colonizers drew lines across maps without caring about the watersheds. Look at the Tigris and Euphrates. These two rivers are the lifeblood of civilization. They birthed ancient Mesopotamia. Today, they are the lifeline for Iraq and Syria. But here is the geopolitical trap. The source of the water is in Turkey. The demand for the water is in Iraq and Syria. In a world of abundant rain, this doesn't matter. But in a drying world, geography is destiny. Turkey has built massive dams upstream. They argue the water is theirs because it falls on their mountains. Downstream, Iraq and Syria constitute a tragedy waiting to happen. Remember the rise of ISIS? We know it was fueled by sectarian division and the power vacuum in Syria and Iraq. But what created the vacuum? Years before the Syrian civil war, a devastating drought pushed 1.5 million farmers off their land and into the cities. Hungry, unemployed, and angry at a corrupt government led by Bashar al-Assad. The water crisis didn't pull the trigger, but it loaded the gun. And as the rivers shrink further, the tension between these nations is reaching a breaking point.
If you want to see the ghost of the future, look at Yemen. We know Yemen has been torn apart by a brutal civil war since 2014, driven by the Houthi movement, sectarian differences, and the proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran. The Saudis support the government. The Iranians support the Houthis. It's a classic Middle Eastern power struggle. But underneath the airstrikes and the rhetoric, Yemen is dying of thirst. Sana'a is on track to be the first capital city in the world to run completely out of water. Before the war, conflicts over water rights in rural Yemen were already killing thousands of people a year. When the state failed, the water infrastructure collapsed. The war in Yemen is complex, involving tribal loyalties and religious divides, but it proves a terrifying rule. When water disappears, order collapses, and when order collapses, the warlords take over. Yemen might be the first, but it is not the biggest. There is another conflict brewing, one that involves a nation with nuclear capabilities and a population of over 100 million people. We'll get to that in a moment.
We cannot talk about conflict in this region without addressing the elephant in the room, sectarianism. The divide between Sunni and Shia has been weaponized by political actors for decades. It fueled the Iraq War, the Syrian civil war, and the tensions in Lebanon. But how does water fit into this religious war? It acts as a threat multiplier. In Iraq, the water crisis hits the south the hardest, the heartland of the Shia population. When the water turns salty and undrinkable, they don't just blame the climate. They blame the government in Baghdad. They blame the Sunnis upstream. They blame foreign meddling. In Lebanon, a country already split 50-50 between Muslim and Christian populations, the failure of the state to provide basic services like water and electricity pushes people back into the arms of sectarian militias. If the state cannot give you water, you turn to Hezbollah, or you turn to your local warlord. Water scarcity kills the nation-state and resurrects the tribe.
And then there is the most explosive conflict of all, Israel and Palestine. Since 1948, this conflict has been defined by land, recognition, and security. Israelis want security, Palestinians want a state. But you cannot build a state without water. The mountain aquifer, which lies largely beneath the West Bank, is a primary water source for both populations. Control over this water is a zero-sum game. Israel has managed to beat the odds through technology. They are the world leaders in desalination and water recycling. They have effectively declared independence from the rain. But their neighbors have not. Gaza is facing a catastrophic water collapse. The West Bank struggles with access. Jordan is one of the driest countries on earth. Peace agreements have failed time and again due to mutually exclusive demands. Water is one of those demands. As the population grows on both sides of the wall, the margin for error disappears. A thirsty neighbor is a dangerous neighbor.
Why can't they solve this? The technology exists: desalination, drip irrigation, wastewater recycling. The problem isn't engineering, it's politics. As we discussed, the region is plagued by corruption and poor governance. Dictators often focus on short-term survival rather than long-term planning. Building a dam takes 10 years. Starting a war to distract your angry population takes 10 days. When the Arab Spring erupted in 2011, people chanted for bread, freedom, and social justice. Bread requires wheat. Wheat requires water. When the water runs out, the price of food skyrockets. And when people cannot feed their children, the fear of the secret police evaporates. The regimes of the Middle East know this. That is why they are terrified. They are sitting on a ticking time bomb, and the fuse is burning shorter every summer.
So, let's revisit the question. Why does the Middle East keep exploding? Yes, it is the legacy of colonialism and artificial borders. Yes, it is the sectarian fire stoked by Iran and Saudi Arabia. Yes, it is the unfinished business of Israel and Palestine. But all of these conflicts are taking place on a stage that is physically collapsing. We are entering an era where the old rules of geopolitics, fighting for oil, fighting for ideology, are being overtaken by the primal fight for survival. The wars of the 20th century were fought over lines on a map. The wars of the 21st century will be fought over what flows beneath them. The Middle East isn't just burning, it is drying up, and fire spreads fastest in dry wood. This brings us to a crucial question for you. Do you think technology can save the region, or is conflict inevitable? Let us know in the comments below. If you want to understand the deep history behind these conflicts, you need to watch our video on the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict right here. And to support our ability to make these documentaries, consider joining us on Patreon via the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.